Meet Bloomberg's own David Nicholson. Now, his happy place is out in the field, on the open road. But like the rest of the world lately, he's been working from home a lot more than he's used to. COVID-19 has prompted a massive urban exodus as professionals of every ilk yearn for more space to live and work. As a result, rural areas have exploded, and they're poised to experience a resurgence as more and more families pack up and leave the big city to try out life in the burbs. But there's one problem with that. Not all internet speeds are created equal. Anyone who might need to upload or download large files for a living may not want to pack up and move to that cabin in the woods just yet. Now, David's house isn't a cabin, but it is in the woods, and inexplicably, his internet is workable.
My internet is okay. I pay a lot for it. It's around $140 a month. The download speed's great, and the upload speed is terrible, which is really bad for my work because I have to upload these massive files. But I'm definitely one of the more lucky ones in this community. Just a few miles down the road, my buddy has awful internet.
It's usually under 2 down and under 0.2 up, so it's often unusable.
Some days it's around 1, and other times it'll drop down to about 0.2, 0.3.
I just want to be able to have internet at my house without having to go outside the normal ways of acquiring internet. It's really frustrating.
We're literally a few miles away from downtown, and it just cuts off.
This is a problem, and the solutions are not there yet. Because getting high-speed internet in rural areas en masse is something our providers may simply not be ready for.
If your internet service doesn't have fast download and upload speeds, then you don't have high-speed harmony. You have.
Americans on average pay about $70 a month for internet at home. But in rural areas, it could cost a lot more for a lot less service.
So the pricing for a fixed wireless provider here can be something between $80 and $150 for about 25 megabits per second. However, gigabit service, which is 1,000 megabits per second and symmetrical, is running at about $119 a month or $130 a month.
That's John Paul. He co-owns Spiral Fiber, an internet service provider here in Nevada County, California. And for the past 10 years, he's been trying to bring an affordable fiber optic network to town. It all started when he applied to be part of the pilot program for Google's fiber service.
Across the country, civic boosters have been going to extremes, chanting, singing, Google in the morning, and marching, trying to get the search engine giant to look at their town.
The internet these days is crucial to be in the world, to be a part of the world, and to be connected to your community.
Google ultimately went with Kansas City, Missouri, which left Paul on a mission to get funding to lay out fiber optic networks for gigabit service. Over the next several years, he would attend conferences and pitch venture capitalists and apply for grants to make his vision come to life.
One of the biggest roadblocks to building infrastructure for the internet here in the United States are the existing large providers. They have their land staked out. They would prefer that nobody come in and compete against them. In 2013, we applied for a grant. We went down and met with the commissioners at the California Public Utilities Commission. It was an arduous process to get funded, but we finally did against all odds. We got a $16 million grant, and then we went out to seek venture capital.
Then, in March of 2020, the pandemic hit the world.
Everybody got locked down, and everybody came home, and everybody started using the internet. And I remember seeing on one of the local fixed wireless providers' websites, they've said, hey, we know you're all staying home, but please don't use too much video, and please don't use too much bandwidth. And I thought, that doesn't work.
The US connectivity gap is far greater compared to countries that are considered its peers economically. Some developing nations actually have better internet than rural America, like in Kenya, which has a state-of-the-art fiber optic network fed in from their coastline. The American connectivity gap does largely affect rural areas that are either outside of service coverage or simply prohibitively expensive. This is Rebecca. She and her family moved to Nevada County just a couple miles down the road from David. They took for granted that high-speed internet would just exist in the area, and it's not something they even bothered to check on before buying their house. Turns out, all they got was dial-up.
We wanted to move where we had a little more space, room for the kids to run around, just be out in the mountains a little bit more. Having come from a bigger city area where Wi-Fi is pretty readily available, we hadn't really considered that in our purchasing of the house, whether that would be an option or not. When school started, and now that we are remote learning with our children and we're doing everything from home, we didn't have the option to do that at our house. So every day when school would start, we'd have to pack the kids up and we'd go to my in-laws' home. They have a little cabin up in this area that does have Wi-Fi already.
Rebecca's situation is the norm in rural America.
According to data from the Federal Communications Commission, just 4% of urban Americans lack access to broadband internet. That's compared to almost 40% of people who live in rural areas. While that was the case, there were also racial and socioeconomic divides in terms of who had that access. In addition to that geographic difference, low-income African American students, Latino students, and first-generation college students were more likely than others to have only one device at home that's shared among multiple siblings and or lack access to that actual connection.
For most American towns, there's also a lack of competition, forcing internet prices up. And large providers like AT&T and Comcast aren't incentivized to expand service to these rural communities.
This is how Xfinity makes life simple, easy, awesome.
So in our area, we have a small imprint of Comcast, but they're not going to go out to the more rural areas. It's just not cost effective for them to do it as a large company.
In order to lay fiber cable, you're actually physically digging trenches into the ground. And for internet service providers, they're primarily focused on maximizing their profits. And so the fewer customers you have, in any square mile and the more fiber you have to lay, that's just kind of harder to pencil out from a purely economic standpoint.
AT&T released a statement on the matter, expressing the need and desire for government assistance to fund fiber optic expansion to areas deemed unprofitable. Comcast released a similar statement encouraging more public-private collaboration on this effort. Federal agencies do offer grants to help communities build broadband networks, but many have argued that there's not enough flexibility on how to use these funds. The COVID-19 relief package passed by Congress in March and signed by President Donald Trump awarded $43.3 million to 51 projects on the East Coast alone. But it also stipulated that these projects needed to be up and running by December 30th. For contractors who plan projects months and years in advance, it's a scramble to rearrange their schedules to meet that deadline.
So what we've been asking the federal government to consider is at least have, as long as the projects are getting started, knowing the projects are being put into place to expand both remote learning, working from home, and opportunities like that that are truly driven from COVID. We're moving as fast as we can regardless, but hopefully they'll give us some more time.
Talking to John Paul, it's clear that he believes broadband is something that can transform a community and should be considered a public good.
One of the first communities to come on in the United States with full-on gigabit service was Chattanooga, Tennessee. Now, they're a bigger city, but they're a city that was economically in a downturn. In the last 15 years, the city of Chattanooga has turned around in an amazing way. It's a nexus for young people to move to. It's a place where technology happens.
It's not just about logging on to Zoom, to connect with your colleagues who might be in New York City. It's also your ability as a small business, operating in the town of Nevada City or wherever it may be to, quickly upload your payroll documents or something onto the cloud, or to quickly, swipe a customer's credit card. There's just some really basic business functions and mechanics that I think people in big cities really take for granted, and that are just going to be a much bigger challenge for small business owners in rural areas.